Today, I am really happy to announce that Proxy Parent Foundation is joining us to speak about how they support families through special needs trusts. And we have two speakers with us. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight their beautiful faces for us. We have Carmen Bowen, MBA, is a dedicated nonprofit executive and a lifelong advocate for individuals with developmental disabilities in underserved communities. She currently serves as the executive director of Proxy Parent Foundation, where she oversees trust administration, fiduciary services, fundraising, and organizational operations, ensuring dignity, protection, and long-term stability for the individuals and families that Proxy serves. Also joining us is Carol Larkin, the Director of Client Relations at Proxy Parent Foundation, where she has spent the last 4 years supporting individuals and families through trust education, trust enrollment, and client-centered services. She brings over a decade of experience in the nonprofit sector with a background spanning foster youth services, supportive housing, and community partnerships. So please join me in welcoming them to share this information about their organization and how they support our community. Thank you so much, Carmen and Carol.
Thank you so much for everyone for being here today and spending your afternoon with us. My name is Carol Larkin, as Sophia mentioned. With me is Carmen Bowen, and if you will just allow me a minute, I will go ahead and start sharing the slides. We are here from Proxy Parent Foundation, and we're going to talk about our Master Pool Trust and our personal support services and the overarching question, who will care when I am not there? So, Proxy Parent Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting people with disabilities by safeguarding their access to public benefit programs through the creation and administration of a plan of California's Special Needs Trust and by providing family-like personal support services. We were founded in 1990 by families who had children with severe mental illness. There's a lot of overlap between the families that founded us and NAMI and other mental health service organizations. But basically, as the idea of the Special Needs Trust came to fruition, they saw the need for not only an organization that can help manage that for families, especially in instances where there might not be extended family, but also this kind of wraparound approach of also having someone on the ground who can look after the beneficiary, check in, and just provide all of those supportive services that mom and dad were providing before they passed. So, what is a special needs trust? It's an estate planning tool that allows its beneficiary to shelter assets and protect qualification for certain government benefits. A person can have a standalone special needs trust or join a master pool trust like Proxy Parent Foundation. So, in the situation where you might have a standalone special needs trust, that is where you would go to an attorney. That attorney is going to draw up that individual document and it's going to be individualized to your needs and your family, or you join a pooled trust where there's a standardized agreement, but we take on all of that administration so that either one person or multiple people on your end in a standalone trust wouldn't have to do that. Um, it's important to establish a special needs trust because it ensures that any inheritance or financial gift does not disqualify your relative from public benefits like SSI or Medi-Cal. A special needs trust can be used in a handful of ways, but really the idea is to supplement rather than supplant government benefits. And I know the word trust, trust fund, has a bit of a negative connotation in the sense of, if I don't have millions, what is going to happen to my child? But really the idea of this is to protect the benefits, and as such, it's not even for families who might not have the financial resources, it's not a deterrent to start one for your beneficiary because it ensures that they're able to benefit from both funding sources continuously. A special needs trust can be used to pay for extra medical, education, recreation, and social services not covered by public benefits. Some examples are, purchasing a new computer, paying the internet bill every month, an AAC device, purchasing a cell phone, personal need items, etc. And it can also be used to supplement food and shelter in specific instances. And this sentence in of itself, the little asterisk is essentially that when you use a special needs trust to pay for housing, if the beneficiary is on SSI, it does need to be reported to the agency and they may reduce the benefit. And that's not our rule. It's SSI's rule. But the trust can be used for housing. Sometimes I've gotten that question before. It's a bit of a misnomer of, I'm not allowed to use this for housing. You can. It's just that with SSI, it carries an asterisk. So there are two types of special needs trust. There's a first party trust and a third party trust. The main difference lies in who is funding the trust. So with a first party trust, it's funded with the disabled person's own assets, such as a personal injury award, a settlement, or an inheritance that they've already received. It may or may not require court petition by a parent, grandparent, or legal guardian. And in this instance, when the beneficiary dies, any remaining funds are subject to rules that require the trust to repay the state for any Medi-Cal benefits previously received. So it's essentially it has a Medi-Cal lien, and that is whether you do it in a master pool trust or you create a standalone first party trust. With a third party trust, it's when someone other than the beneficiary provides the assets, such as a family member or other concerned party. In this instance, when the beneficiary dies, there is no Medi-Cal payback required. Instead, the grantor designates who receives the remaining funds after a 25% retention by Plan of California as a nonprofit trustee. And this is why the idea of planning ahead is so important because as you can see with the first party trust, if you were to leave an inheritance directly to them, to the individual, and they decide to set up that trust themselves, if they pass away and there's still funds in the account, it's going to go back to the state. Whereas if you set up the third party trust in advance and do this planning ahead of time, you still have a little bit more power over what happens to that money should the beneficiary pass away unexpectedly. The Plan of California Master Pool Trust accepts first and third party trusts. We provide the trustee, so the organization is the trustee. We manage it for you. Conversely, in a standalone trust, you would have to find someone to serve as the trustee. Our funds are pooled for investment purposes and lower management fees, but a separate account is maintained for each individual beneficiary. So while the aggregate is invested together, if you were to put, for example, $100,000 in for John Doe, John Doe has access only to that $100,000. No one else can access that money. And that is the same for any gains that are made on the individual accounts. So if that $100,000 earns investment funds, it goes into that account only. And while we manage the trust and we do all of the administrative work, we do welcome family involvement in all matters. There are several places that we can designate for people to check in, be able to request information, help with decision making, and just be a trusted consultant for the beneficiary. The Plan of California Master Pool Trust is open to all disability types, all ages, and all California residents. So we work all in the entire state of California, which is great. So we have a big reach, but also if the beneficiary might like to move around, we would be able to follow them up and down the state. So, our personal support services, which is really the heart and soul of our organization, as I mentioned before, it's when we hire someone that lives in the local community of the beneficiary to work with them and provide those supportive services that mom and dad were doing prior to their passing. So, some service examples include finding and maintaining housing, applying for and maintaining public benefits, obtaining and maintaining medical and dental care, developing and maintaining friendships, recreation, and quality of life, support with life skills such as budgeting. Our personal support specialist or proxy parents step into the shoes of a loving family member and act as a caring advocate and friend. Everyone that we've spoken to is very interested in this service arm of our organization. We're very fortunate in the way that we do our hiring. We have very little turnover. A lot of our personal support specialists, some of them have had to bury their beneficiaries. And when we speak to them about it, they say it's like losing a family member. So it really is a developed, long-term relationship so that we can step in and take care of the beneficiary for the remainder of their life. So, why Proxy Parent Foundation? It's a private solution to a public dilemma. We provide services more efficiently and cost effectively than can be provided independently. As a quick overview of all of the services that go into trust administration, of course, it's, distributions, ensuring compliance with all of the changing regulations and rules. For example, Medi-Cal, last year they didn't have an asset limit. Now they do have an asset limit, so ensuring that anything that we do is compliant with the various public benefit agencies. We marry the expertise of the business world with the compassion of the nonprofit world. Our board of directors are a great mix of people who are in the business industry, the nonprofit industry. We have people who are in healthcare, psychiatry, and all of them have that lived experience of having a family member with severe mental illness. And it's a model of what dedicated community members and disability advocates can accomplish. As I mentioned, we were founded by parents who came together, saw a need for a specific service, and they created it because they wanted it for their children and for other people's children. Our personal support services will give you the peace of mind and help answer the question, who will care when I'm not there? In addition to what other pool trusts may provide, the Plan of California Master Pool Trust offers enrollment without court approval simply by signing a joinder agreement. We do not have an asset minimum or maximum to join. Some private institutions, if you're doing research, you might find that they do have a minimum funding amount to even take on the trust. We have a really great back office, as we call it. Our investment management strategy is provided by a company called Lynbrook Capital, and they're based out of Los Angeles. The custodian of our funds is Fidelity Investments, pretty big name there. And our trust agent is ML Management, also based in Los Angeles. And really, the point of highlighting this is that it creates a really secure system of checks and balances, meaning that no one entity can do anything with a trust account without these three other agencies having eyes on it and having to sign off on it. So, in terms of keeping the account secure and little to no chances of fraud, this is a great system to keep those checks and balances. And of course, our personal support services. We're the only pooled trust in the state that offers this service. We also offer a pay-as-you-go option for families that are already enrolled with us and have a trust with our organization. And the pay-as-you-go program is essentially a way to access those personal support services in the here and now. So if you are seeking extra support and care, or you're seeking to transition your disabled loved one to a new housing arrangement, that's where we can step in. So we see a lot of families come to us if their loved one is in crisis. For example, last year we had a family up in the Bay Area. They are enrolled with us. They have a trust that's going to be funded at a later date, but They called, they said that their child had gone AWOL, he stopped taking medication, left his housing, and subsequently lost all his benefits. And so they needed support with finding him and kind of starting at ground zero, going to go get an ID and starting that rebuilding process of benefits. Other times we see it when a parent is getting a little bit older, the child lives in the home and they're thinking, okay, it's time. I need to see them off to a new location so that they feel comfortable and just ensuring that, you leave them in a place where as well as also facilitating that relationship already between the beneficiary and the personal support specialist. Um, Live. And so here are some common questions that we get while we're doing intakes with families. So things to consider as you're either researching special needs trust or considering whether you should go standalone route or master pool route. So, who will be the trustee? So, with a pool trust, we are the trustee for ours specifically. But if you were to have a standalone trust, those options include a family member, friend, private fiduciary, or financial institution. Um, when you select the trustee, do they know how to invest and manage the funds? If the trustee is a family member, will it cause any problems in that relationship? I will say that 30 to 40% of our calls are people who are currently managing a family member's trust and they feel that they are way in over their head and they're looking to transfer it over to us. But unfortunately, given the legal specs, it's harder to do after it's funded than before it's funded. So ensuring that that person knows what this role really entails. What sort of oversight will your trustee have? Does the trustee know how to serve the needs of the beneficiary? So, are they well versed in that person's specific disability? Do they know how to help them in a time of crisis? Will the trustee be able to keep up with changing government benefit regulations? As we know, using the Medi-Cal example again, that changed just from last year to this year. So, that changes the way that you can make distributions. And of course, will the trustee understand the tax requirements that go along with managing the trust? So these are just a handful of questions to consider when you're doing special needs trust planning. And with that, the next slide is our information page, which I will leave just up for a couple minutes, but we can start fielding questions.
Thank you so much, Carol. And I will be sure to send out the slideshow as well as his contact information after the meeting. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to either raise your hand or go ahead and ask it out loud, or you can put it in the chat. I do have a pre-submitted question that I can start us off with. And it looks like we already have one question in the chat. Let me go ahead and read this out for you. Does Arizona have a service like Proxy Parent that you know of?
Not that we know of. I heard some like this is just historical, fun fact that there was apparently supposed to be, I think, a plan in every state. I don't think that ended up materializing because it would have to have different founders. But what we always suggest for families that contact us out of state is to reach out to your local NAMI. They will likely know about something similar.
Thank you. The question that I have for you is multi-part, so I'm going to read it through, and if you need me to repeat any part of it, please let me know. And I'll go ahead and spotlight Carmen again so that she can help us with the Q&A portion. The question is, can a home be included in a special needs trust for inheritance? And if so, are they subject to reappraisal, and will the beneficiary have to be responsible for increased property taxes? If this person inherits a home, will that affect their eligibility for SSDI? How about if the person co-owns the home with a family member who is not disabled? So please let me know if you need me to repeat any of that.
Okay, I'll try to get started on that one. So I'm dealing with that now. So what we don't take homes as as collateral for the trust. However, what families do is in your personal trust, you establish how you want that the property to be dissolved. Do you want it to be sold, or do you want the if you have other children, if you want to keep it, but maybe buy out the other child that special needs, and that part will go into the trust, or a family we just recently worked with. She had two special needs children and both had trusts with us. And her option was to sell the home, but everything was stipulated in her personal trust. And so when she passed away, her attorney knew what to do to sell the home, and she had named a couple family members to work with the attorney to get that done. Once the home was sold, then the funds were transferred to Proxy Parent Foundation Plan of California, which is us, and we funded their trusts. So that's the kind of way we do it. That's the best way, and that's the only way we do it, because it can be we're not a real estate company, so we can't do all of that and manage it and property taxes and things like that. Now, if a family member wants to leave that house to the child or a family member that has a special needs trust, they're welcome to do that, and we can help them pay some of those bills like the taxes and so forth if it's enough out of the trust. But that's a big undertaking. Very few do that because many of our clients that have special needs can be easily taken advantage of. And just the sheer maintenance of a home and responsibility like that can be very daunting. So that's very few and far between if, others do that. But as far as if you're going to leave a home, just stipulate it in your family trust or your personal trust to say, when I pass, this is what I'd like to be done with my home. Here's what we do with the monies. 200,000 goes to my son's special needs trust through Proxy Parent Foundation Plan of California, however you choose to do it. And we handle it that way.
And adding on to that, pooled trusts generally do not accept property. That being said, if you set up a standalone trust, you can include the property in there. It's just that because there is so much liability with it, the stance of pool trust is generally that we do not accept the property into the trust because of various reasons. So you could do it with a standalone trust, or as Carmen said, I think there's a handful of tricks, probably tips and tricks that lawyers probably be able to more so come up with, but you could also, there is not a limit on how many special needs trust a person could have. So sometimes what we have found with certain families who are really interested in our personal support services, they'll set up a trust with us as well, and then keep their other special needs trust. So that trust will hold the house, and someone will manage that because it wouldn't be us. And then we would manage all the other aspects as well as the personal support services in the trust that was created with us.
And I just want to add to that was a long question, so it's a lot of answers, isn't it?
Mhm.
But one of the things you have to remember, and Carol touched on that earlier when she was doing her presentation, but if you do the standalone trust, and we're not saying one way or the other don't do it, but there's a lot of things to consider. And the main thing is who you leave to do that. For example, and I'm just being a human being, having family like everybody else. Everybody is peachy keen until someone, especially the strong person in the family, passes away. And to make sure that someone is managing the legalities of a special needs trust, the taxes, you can't give out cash to the recipient. I mean, there's so many guidelines. Can your family member do that? Another thing is that many of our families, like one lady, she said, my son's a doctor. I'm sure he can handle it. She said, but he's a doctor. He's busy. I cannot put that burden on him. I would rather someone else do that and just let him be the sibling. Let him be the support that that person needs versus having to take it on as a burden. And that's where she put it. So I could understand this. You just have to kind of think of those things and figure out what's the best for you. But it's not to say your kids or your family member can't do it, but can they do it? But also the other thing is if someone is given that responsibility and their funds are a little shaky, are they going to do the right thing? So you just want to make sure that you think of all of those things, good and bad, and then you make your decision because that's a reality there.
Thank you both for that detailed answer.
Mhm.
We have a question about, do you have information about how Plan of California was created? Was it legislated?
So the special
Okay, now,
needs trust.
yeah,
Oh, go
trust,
ahead,
yes.
Carl.
Oh no,
So
go ahead. You
this
do that part. Yes, yes.
so the special needs trust is legislation, right? That was created. It has the legal protections to not be counted against the beneficiary. The organizational history was we were founded by parents who had children with um, severe mental illness. So they filed this as a 501(c)(3). So we're a nonprofit organization. The original history was that we used to actually manage trusts that other people created. We didn't have our master pool trust. So into our development, we created our master pool trust, and that's when we decided we're going to run the operations. I think that's probably a learning curve for managing so many highly individualized trusts. And so then we opened up our master pool trust. That's what we've been operating now. And then in the past 10 years, we also opened our doors to all disability types. So we used to only work with mental illness, mentally ill clients. And so now we work with all disability types. But if you have a little bit more to add on that history, since I know you just did it.
Yeah. No, that's right. No, and she's correct. You know, when I was talking to Sophia earlier, we were discussing, the families coming together that were members of NAMI and other, probably like organizations, Proxy Parent, we have that shared legacy of families that have children or people that we love that have mental illness or other disabilities. And so everybody, including Carol and myself, we have family members that we care for that have disabilities. So we understand. And I'm glad that we are in that position because that helps us do the right thing and understand what the right thing is because we walk in those shoes every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just adding to that, I think a little bit of that, you kind of just touched upon oversight. Um, we had just to give you a little bit of an insight on how we work. So we have a court supervised trust. So it's a little bit different than just a family member setting it up. Basically, the court deemed that we were to have the trust and that we have to submit accounting and all of that jazz. But the point of this story is that his mother was submitting pretty outrageous disbursement requests. And because we are an organization and we have our own internal processes as well as our own reporting, we have to really look at every single invoice that comes through our organization. We don't just pay things blindly. And so once she started submitting things, we noticed she was trying to get family things paid for, and that's where we as kind of trust protectors and essentially a third party that doesn't have a personal stake in the matter, we were able to step in and say this is solely for the benefit of the beneficiary, so we can pay his portion of this invoice, but we will not be paying for the rest of the invoice. And that caused strife between us and that individual's parent. But if that parent it's a parent in this situation, but if that parent had been managing the trust, who knows how fast that might have run out.
Yes, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what Carol said, we have, of course, we would have so many stories, but we even had, people that ask us for things. And a question came up today with Carol and I were on a call. And one of our clients wants, she wanted us to pay off her car, which we've done before for her. And so she was asking to do it again. And so we won't do that again because her money is gone down significantly, but also she wrecked the last car. So we don't want to do that. But she wanted us to say that she has money in her trust and it's at her disposal. And that is not true because a special needs trust is not at their disposal like that. There are rules and regulations. A regular trust that's not special needs. Yeah, they have more of that. But special needs, we can't give them cash. We can't do so many things because of the legislation. And once I, re-explained that to her, she says, okay, I remember. But we have to be that person to say, no, we can't do it. Whereas some family members don't want to cause any problem. And they'll just like, oh, what do I do? But, we have to follow the law and have to follow the rules and say, no, we can't do that because it's not allowed.
Yes. And then the second part of that question, which was it legislated? So, not our, creation, it was legislated, but something to even note, even for example, our investments, they are court supervised. We have to submit our investment plans to the courts to look over. And speaking with our liaison at Lynbrook, he explained something really interesting to me a couple months ago that we're not even legally allowed to lose money. So our investment strategies are very conservative, and I know sometimes families aren't in agreement with that. They want something that's a little bit more aggressive, and that's completely fine. It's whatever you and your family might need. But our investment strategy is very conservative so that even in a time of turmoil, yeah, the account might not be making money, but it's not going to lose money. We can't lose their money. We can make money, but we cannot lose money. And so there's so much of that kind of connection between us, the legal system, and then all of the partners that we work with and care that just go into managing these accounts. And it's a lot of work.
Thank you. My next question is, how much does this service cost if you have a trust in place already, but want to switch it to Proxy Parent Foundation working with a disabled family member for services?
So, that's a great question because that comes up a lot, right? In terms of I'm already managing something. So the asterisk lies in whether the trust is your current special needs trust is funded or not. Once any special needs trust, whether standalone or within a master pool trust like ours, is funded, it becomes irrevocable. So if you want to change anything about the trust, so for example, let's say I'm managing someone's trust outside of this organization and I say, I want to give it to you because I can't do this. It's too much work or whatever. I need to get court approval to be able to dissolve the current trust as it is legally irrevocable to be able to transfer the funds to Proxy Parent Foundation. So that is why all of this pre-planning, information gathering is so important for your future decisions. So if it is not funded, you have a lot more flexibility because if it's not funded, it's just a piece of paper. So if you wanted to switch over to us, then you would pay our enrollment fee, which if you are opting into the personal support services is $1,000, and that will help us create the entire trust for you. We'll also do what we call a needs and resource assessment, which is where we gather more information about your loved one, historical, current status, and your future hopes and wishes for them, as well as creating a spending budget for the trust. So, how do you envision it being spent? What do we anticipate the average annual expenditures to be? And then we put that up against your anticipated funding amount to give us an idea of how long the trust is going to last. And this is where sometimes it might take a little bit of iterations of us doing it because our goal as an organization is for the trust to last the lifetime of the beneficiary. So if our spending is too high and we're saying, at this rate of expenses, this might only last 10 years and we really need it to last 20, that's where we'll also working with you be like, where can we cut back? Where can we do some wiggle room for this. Once all of that's set in place, you get all of the legal documents to sign, you send it back, we create the trust, and then it's ready for funding whenever it's time. In the interim between creation and funding, there is no fees in between. So if you were to set it up 100% today and it's not funded for 50 years, that's fine. There's no fees in between. The annual fees do will start once the trust is funded. The rate sheet will be included in all the paperwork that you get. But just to briefly go over it, there are three main annual fees. There's an annual trust maintenance fee. It's a bit of a scale depending on the trust balance, but it ranges from 1.25% to 1.75%, the middle tier being 1.5%. There is an investment management fee that is 1% annually and a flat $285 tax preparation fee. Those fees are assessed quarterly, so it has a nice kind of uh, how would you call it? Kind of like decline in fee. So I'm taking the 1% fee because it's easier to divide. So every quarter we take the balance and we will assess a 2.5% fee to it. So as the beneficiary is spending down, that fee kind of goes down with it. Um, the personal support services are additional. It does get billed to the trust and built into the trust budget. And that right now at this time is $85 an hour for the specialist, plus mileage and travel time. And a on top of it has a 15% administration fee based on the hours provided. So this fee has nothing to do with the balance. It's on the fees provided. So if it's a little bit easier to conceptualize, if it's $85 an hour, if we added that 15% fee in there, it'd be, let's say, $97 an hour, like 97.50. That's what it kind of comes out to. But those are the fees. And then, like I said, you will get the rate sheet in the paperwork afterwards.
Kind of on that same note of cost, a question is, what is some guidance about what the pay-as-you-go assistance might cost this year?
So the pay as you go, think of it as a retainer. So it's not a trust fund because it's like it's not irrevocable. It's not a special needs trust. The money that you put into the pay as you go account is not invested. And because it is not a trust, if there was some sort of emergency and you needed those funds back, we would be able to refund them. The pay as you go, there's not a set like amount for it. I mean, there's the hourly fee that I mentioned. It's $85 an hour. But what we would do is work with you to come up with an anticipated budget. So we would sit down and talk and say, this is what we're kind of looking for right now. That might come out to 3 hours a month. And so we'll build a 6 month budget at an average of 3 hours a month. And then we would ask you to fund it in 6 month increments. So that's how that kind of works. And that's why it's pay as you go because it has a lot of flexibility. So for example, let's say we say average of 3 hours a month, but for 2 months, they only did 1 hour. So that money will just stay in the account unless you requested it to be refunded, in which case we can, because it's a separate account from the special needs trust.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What are some of the main precautions or what should parents be aware of before fully applying for a trust through Proxy Parent Foundation?
Mm,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll start on
solid.
Carol. Yeah, that's a very good. Well, there's so many things to be aware of. The main thing that I know as a parent is beware of procrastination because a lot of parents are waiting, whatever. And honestly, we just don't know when our special day is to leave this earth. And when you have a special needs child or a family member you care for, you can't afford to not have everything in place because those are our most vulnerable people in our communities. And you can't be sure that someone is going to take care of them, certainly won't take care of them like you. So that's why it's important to go ahead and start the process and ask, Carol and I are here to answer a plethora of questions because we know just how important this is. This is a big decision. And so we want to make sure that you're making the best decision. So my caution is to not wait and start doing your due diligence, and you do your research as well. But but waiting can be very costly because if you don't have everything in place, then the courts come in. And what money that took care to save and have available for that person could dwindle significantly because of court battles and fees. So, if you take care of it in advance, then you know that this is where it's going to go. And like Carol said, for those, families, we set up those budgets for them. So we'll know, hey, this is kind of what that person needs. We make sure those bills are paid for them. We make sure that this lasts as long as it possibly can. So it isn't, so that would be my cautionary thing is just not to wait. But certainly do your homework and make sure that you do your comparative studies, but know that it's important to do it. And Carol, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, I mean, if the person can elaborate what they mean in terms of precautions. I mean, we are a 501(c)(3), so if you're wanting to review our, financials, the stability of the organization, if you mean it in that sort of sense, then all of that is public knowledge. I believe it's all of our 990s are on GuideStar, um, which I think now is Candid, but it's a database for all the nonprofits and like their financials. So from that angle, that's all public data. So feel free to search around for that. In terms of just general planning, like Carmen said, I think doing it as soon as feasible for you and your family. I know, like, just for example, for the trust that we create where the grantor is in their 90s, they're always kind of frazzled, and then it gets to be too much, and it's like, what am I doing? And then we're only one piece of the puzzle. So we're the special needs trust, but then you still have to create your family trust and ensure, where is all of the variety of your assets going to go. So it's a lot to take on, and if you're taking it on at the last minute, it can be overwhelming. Um, Other precautions, sometimes we get asked if the beneficiary should be aware that they have a special needs trust. And I would say that that's a bit of a mixed bag. We have some families that the beneficiary already understands what's going on, they're involved, and they might even be asking me questions as well during the entire intake process. Other times, the grantor knows their child and knows that this would just greatly upset them, and they don't want to deal with that, but they know that this is what's best for them, especially in terms of protecting their benefits. So they just don't loop in the beneficiary at all. So that's a bit more of a personal decision. But yeah, if the person can elaborate, I guess I hope maybe hopefully we covered it. But if there's a specific precaution or topic that you want us to speak on, please feel free to add it to the chat.
Can I ask a question? Can
Yes,
you
Yes.
hear me?
we can hear
Um,
you.
what about hands-on when the parents are no longer there and how do you oversee what's going on with the child when they're, let's say, living in an apartment with caregivers? How does one find out or make sure that they're well cared for, not abused, and really taken care of if they're dealing with your company?
Yeah, so that's where the personal support services come into play, especially if the client is someone who is, um, sorry, I don't know if you can hear the neighborhood noise, but apologies. But yeah, so the personal support specialist, they're the one that is going to go in and oversee, and they're really think of them as a very high arching like coordinator. So, especially for our clients who might have people in and out of their home, or if they live in facilities, who is checking in on them? God forbid that there is an abusive situation. Who is going to be that advocate to look after them? So, that's going to be the person on the ground physically seeing the beneficiary and providing services for them, and doing, whatever you as the grantor designated that you wanted us to do with them. In terms of reporting, the personal support specialist has to submit a report after every visit with the client to our director of social services. They have to submit quarterly reports as well to our board of directors, and then our quality assurance committee within our board of directors reviews those every year, as well as every year the accounts go through a yearly budget review to see where we are at spending. Obviously, when we create the budget for the trust, we if we do it right now, it might not account for what's actually happening in 15 years. Or, there's a medical emergency, and one time we had to pay out a giant lump sum for a medical emergency. So what that means is at the end of every year, we look at the accounts, we see where we are at in spending, overspending, underspending, or right on track. And from that, determining how do we recalibrate moving forward so that we stay on target for longevity of what we stated that this trust would last.
So, how often would someone be supervising what's going on? And what is the cost and how often?
So how
Well,
often is dictated by you, the grantor. So that's when we're doing the needs and resource assessment, and in your ideal world of what you want this person to do and how often you want them to see the beneficiary, you're kind of helping us dictate that. So what I see on average as I'm doing the needs and resource assessments. Some lower support needs clients maybe get 1 to 2 visits a month, and that could be up to 5 hours a month. Some of our higher needs clients are getting 20 to 30 hours a month, and it's very hands-on. So it's an individualized determination. In terms of the cost, that's $85 an hour plus mileage and travel time for the PSS.
and we do try to get
So,
the PSSs in that area as well, so that mileage and stuff is not too much. But also, one of the things I want to make sure, and I think you said it, Carol, but I want to make sure I stress it. We also have a director of social services, and they're the person that manage our personal support specialists to make sure that she manages the budgets to make sure whatever you've said you want done gets done, so that no one is over visiting or doing something they're not supposed to do. And I manage that person, so I kind of go back through and make sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to work. So we have lots of checks and balances too, in addition to what Carol told you about how much it costs and so forth. But we want to assure you also that there's lots of oversight as well.
thank you.
You're welcome. Did we
And
answer
now
your
is all,
question?
well, maybe I'm thinking of one more. Is
Okay.
all this done in writing as to the type of services that you will provide once I'm gone?
Yeah, so the general plan of your wishes, that all gets recorded with us, in the needs and resource assessment. And what we do ask families is, we do it upon enrollment. So, but we then ask that you periodically check in, update it every, 2 to 3 years, or if something really big happens, please email us, let us know, what resulted as, from the event, or how was it handled, anything that you want to let us know, so that when we step in, we can have a really huge historical archive of everything that's been going on in the meantime, for when it is our turn to step in.
So can this service be started before the parent is gone to see how it
Yes.
all works out?
Yes. So that would be our pay as you go program. Once you're enrolled in the trust.
And we have
So,
lots of families that haven't passed on that have opted to do pay as you go, because a lot of people, well, they've been doing this for so long, and some people either they've gotten to the point they really can't care for that person and they need some help, Or we had one family, they just wanted to start going on vacations and things like that. And they needed that kind of help. So they do pay as you go, to make sure that while they're gone, someone is looking in on that person and making sure everything is the way they see it. And if there's something that goes wrong, they have someone on the boots on the ground that will be there to help while they're out of town or something like that. So we get that a lot, more than probably in the past because people are really needing that help. And sometimes they're figuring out it's okay to get that. And it would be more cost effective for someone to help me than for, someone that's already struggling. Like some parents ask our personal support specialists to come in and help just with benefit renewal paperwork. That is so valuable because sometimes it's overwhelming. And just to have someone that understands it, has done it many times, come in and help your loved one get everything filled out and submitted so they can keep their benefits is priceless to them. So just there's so many, scenarios we can give you, but the reality of it is, yes, you can do it. And everybody's situation is different, but you're certainly, welcome to do that in advance because it might be something that you really would benefit from.
That really is a wonderful answer. Thank you very much. I was looking for that kind of an answer. Thank you.
Yes.
Carolyn, Carmen, do you have insight on if a young person has early onset dementia, would the best option be a special needs trust or a reversible trust?
I would say a special needs trust because the reversible does not have the protections a special needs trust has. Special needs trust was there for people that have a plethora of illnesses and issues. And the thing is, you don't want it revocable because who's going to revoke it? And then you're going to start, and you're not here to say no. The revocable, I could easily see it causing lots of problems. But if it's not a special needs trust, hands down, no matter where you live in the country, is irrevocable. But with that irrevocability comes all of the different benefits and all the protections. And the irrevocable part is a protection. For example, Carol and I had the pleasure of meeting one of our grantors, a mother who opened up her child's trust 10 years ago with us. And we were in Northern California and she wanted to come meet us. And she brought her son, who would be our beneficiary. And she wanted us to explain to him so he'll understand what happens when she passes and how we would be there to support him. We did that. But he also brought his partner with him. And his partner was trying to say, I don't know why this lady's doing this for him. And we can manage his own money and there's nothing wrong with him. And the mother looked at Carol and I and said, see, and this is why I did this so other people can't take advantage because the guy. Was he self-sufficient in many ways? Absolutely. But the mother knows her child and she knows he has other issues. And that he can't really do this on his own. And that very person, if he had control of the money, would be gone. And so she thanked Carol and I at the end, after we got through, because we explained everything and we explained it to his partner. And she said she was not going to not have this, because that's her money. And this is the way she wanted to do it. And it is very important to know that with people that are vulnerable, like people with disabilities, you want to make sure it's irrevocable.
Yeah. And then just, I mean, back to the original question, I guess, of what would be best. I mean, I think that that's such an individual determination, but if this person who is having early onset dementia is on any benefits or might need benefits for their care in the future, then special needs trust is going to be the way to go because that's the only one that's going to offer protection for eligibility for benefits. If this person is a gazillionaire and maybe they just need a trust and then someone to help take care of them, and that's a different situation, and that works out well as well. But I think the underlying question would be, are there benefits to currently protect or future benefits to potentially protect, especially with
Right.
dementia and the long-term care that's going to go into that specific situation?
Right. And then one of the things you want to consider is because we have, beneficiaries that have millions of dollars. But keep in mind, if you don't have those benefits, the medical and all of those things and all the services, those monies can go really fast. Because remember, we're not there to make money. We can't invest because we can't lose money. So you can't do anything spectacular to keep that money. And if they get sick and some things don't pay for something, that money can go so fast. So that's why it's important to understand the protection afforded people that have a special needs trust. That's why there's no minimum or maximum to opening it. So it didn't say, well, you only can have this much money. It doesn't say that. It's to protect the benefits. Benefits are the one that's very valuable.
Roughly how many families are currently participating in the Master Pool Trust?
Okay. Well, your Karen goes me. That's my job to make sure I keep up with all of that stuff. So right now we have 120 families that are active. And then we have about 68 families we call will call, meaning they already have their trust set up and just waiting to be funded, whatever triggering event that is. So getting close to like 180 people, and it fluctuates because we've had many more over the years, but people have passed on and so forth. So right now, active about 180, which will active 120, but 68 that are signed up, ready to go, and just waiting for that to happen. So and we are experiencing healthy growth now, slowly but surely, because Carol and I, this is why we're doing this to get the word out, because a lot of people just don't know this is a thing. And we want them to know this is something that could really impact your loved one's life and ensure that their future is secure enough so that they can live a healthy enough life and a happy enough life because they have someone watching over doing what you ask us to do in your place.
Beautiful. Thank you. If the parent lives in Oregon and the child lives in California, in which state would they create the trust?
For us, it would have to be California because we only do California. We do have families that live other places, but I have a family that lives in New Zealand. But the child lives here. So you would have to set it here. And we're virtual, so you don't have to physically come here. So so that's kind of makes it a lot easier. But the beneficiary would need to be here, but you can be wherever you are to set up the trust.
Yeah, so just adding on to that, I think it depends on the type of trust that you want to set up. So if they live in California and you wanted to use a master pool trust, then you would have to select a California master pool trust. If you were thinking of setting up a standalone trust, then you could create that in Oregon. And then depending on where then your future trustee might live, that might come into play. But for a pool trust with your loved one living in California, you'll want to use a California pool trust organization.
Another question is about those specialty support people and if the services that they provide are similar to an IHSS worker, an in-home support services worker.
Yes and no. The key difference being that our personal support specialists are not medical caregivers, and they do not provide medical care. So I believe with IHSS, you can maybe administer medication, wound care, or anything like that. Our person cannot administer medication. They cannot help with personal hygiene, showering, cleaning somebody up, or anything like that. The other type of supportive services, so, helping them with shopping, meal prep, bringing other providers into the home, etc., that they can do, transportation, so just no medical care of any kind. And if the PSS happens to be a therapist in their day job, they cannot do therapy on our beneficiary. So that's kind of the key difference. So there is some overlap, but just none of those, anything that kind of falls under physical caregiving. Now, they can remind the beneficiary to take their medication. They can incentivize the beneficiary to take their medication. They can support with refills and all of that stuff, but they can not administer that themselves.
Right. But keep in mind, they can keep their IHSS worker. Again,
Hmm.
so safeguards their benefits. So what this does is allows them to have all of those things. We have people with IHSS regional center. I mean, all kinds of things. Because they have the special needs trust, they don't have any assets attached to that person. So they have Cal what's the oh God, I've lost my train of thought because I'm a certain age. But for the one with the state, I cannot think today. I'm so sorry. Medi-Cal. Why can I think of that quickly? Medi-Cal. So you can have Medi-Cal, all of these things together. So that doesn't mean so if you have, for example, we have one person that I work with has an IHSS worker, but they want a PSS. The family wanted a PSS just to kind of go check on to make sure that person is doing what they're supposed to do. So that our PSS can be like that second eye to make sure that all the other workers are doing what are supposed to. Not that we're going to supervise or manage, but then we'd be the liaison with the family to say, yeah, everything looks good, or we might want to discuss this or try to figure out how to work this out because it doesn't look right. And so that's what they do a lot as well.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful when there are other services provided. We would want to tap into those resources first because that's going to help scale back the PSS hours, which is going to again like just cost less to the trust. So they can step in for even higher just supportive needs. So checking in, is IHSS doing their job? Is there any issues? If that person quit, what's going to happen in the interim while a new person is assigned, or whatever happens there. So definitely, we love to tap into all of the other supportive agencies and partners and services first, before applying anything that costs money to the trust. But yeah,
What is a PSS?
personal support specialist.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
I get mixed up with all these acronyms. So many
Us
There's
too.
acronyms.
many of
Yes, we
them.
get it though. Yes, thanks for asking though.
It's like a new
Definitely.
language.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So how are these people chosen? The ones that support the individual who
Gosh. Well, there's lots of ways, but we work with certain agencies, but we've been around so long, we do a word of mouth. So many of our personal support specialists, they work in hospitals, they work in clinics, they work all kinds of places. So they'll say, I work with this company and this is what I do. And so, we do have a job description. We vet them, we do background checks, we do all of that stuff to make sure they're qualified. We like to do a more high level person because there's a lot of problem solving with, working with our clients. So, but we have our director of social services who is a social worker, and she does the vetting, and then we make sure that it's a good fit with the actual beneficiary because there are some beneficiaries that might want a man or just might want a woman or need someone that can handle certain temperaments, whereas others can't. So we really try to match them up to the best of our ability because these people are going to be with them. This is not a temporary thing. When they are hired with us, we tell them, um, you know, we want to make sure that that we don't want you to just do this for a side gig just for a little while. This is a commitment. And most of our personal support specialists have been with us for decades because they're like family to those people. And they help family do, because they're around that person more than family. If the beneficiary passes away, then that person is kind of helping the family make plans because they know the person. So hopefully that helps you out as to, how the personal support specialist is found, but the commitment and why we want that person not to be temporary. We want them to be part of the Proxy Parent Foundation family or community.
do they make unannounced visits to the apartment where the person lives with her caregivers?
I don't think that they would unless the person has become unresponsive. Um, I think it would kind of depend on the situation, or unless the grantor specifically requested something like that.
And has concerns.
Because
Yeah.
they do schedule with the beneficiary.
Yeah. But to give you an example, we do have, members that kind of go a little bit AWOL. And so we work with the family. We try to go find them and make sure, to get them back on track. So that would be the only unannounced because we need to go find them. But other than that, no, we, like Carol said, it was usually scheduled. But if you as a family member are still around or other family members have a concern and they said, I think something's going on, then we would make it unannounced to go check on.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Can either of you speak to how special needs trusts work together with ABLE accounts?
Sure. So they work together in the sense that you can use your special needs trust to fund your ABLE account up to the yearly maximum limit, right? So if the person has an ABLE account and they're familiar with how to use it and they have the debit card that is associated with that account, then we can certainly set up transfers over to their ABLE account so that they can have a little bit more of that flexible spending up until the yearly limit, of course. And the second thing that the ABLE account and the S&T kind of work really great together is that asterisk that I kind of mentioned during the presentation of SSI and paying for housing. So if you use special needs trust funds to pay for housing, you have to report it to SSI and they will likely reduce your benefit for that contribution. But that does not carry into a
LA.
accounts. So if the person has an ABLE account and they want housing support, what we can do is we can transfer those funds into their ABLE account and then it's out of our hands. So the Special Needs Trust did not pay for housing. All we did was transfer to CalAble and then they used the funds from CalAble to pay for their rent, house, mortgage, or HOA, property taxes, whatever is associated with housing, then they don't get penalized for it by SSI.
Yeah.
The only unfortunate thing is depending on the level of need, if it exceeds that 20K, which is the limit this year, then you're still in a little bit of a pickle, but in terms of reporting, but yeah. So that's a cool kind of way that they can work together to further protect your SSI benefit. But other than that,
Hello?
yeah, we can add to the account.
A follow-up question to that, will the ABLE account stay in the parent's name after the parent is deceased, or is it in the name of the beneficiary? And which name should be on the account?
Um, that I think kind of falls into just personal decision territory. We as an entity can't take it over. So if you feel that the beneficiary is able to manage it, then you can transfer it over to them, or perhaps a family member can just oversee it, or somebody else. But we don't oversee able we don't oversee anything that's outside of our purview, nor do we act as primary representative. Like to receive the benefit money, nor do we act as conservator, because all of those things would be conflict of interest, and you don't want someone that manages every single aspect of the person's life like that. But yeah.
Thank you. I have a question about how special needs trusts protect disability benefits. This is the question, if a person with dementia has state-funded health insurance like Medi-Cal, and she has a special needs trust, when she starts receiving the funds, let's say $1 million a year, will she lose her health insurance? Will she lose Social Security disability?
No, so
No.
that's the underlying legal basis of special needs trusts. They were created for people with disabilities to be able to receive assets without losing their eligibility for public benefits programs. Now, over time, some of those eligibility markers have changed. SSI is pretty steady at that 2K. Um, Medi-Cal last year didn't have an asset limit. Now they do have an asset limit. So that kind of speaks to even how these things change year to year. So that's why kind of sometimes the safest bet is to put it into a special needs trust. But to answer the question, if it's in a trust, a special needs trust, they will not lose health insurance or their social security disability because it's not counted as an asset or income against them. Now, the caveat here is the reason that that is, and as Carmen has mentioned it already, is because we do not give cash to beneficiaries. We only pay third party vendors. So they'll come to us and request, can you pay my phone bill? Great, we're going to cut a check to Verizon. We're not cutting a check to Bob Smith so that Bob Smith can pay his phone bill. Or worse, maybe not pay his phone bill. He just wants the money for something else. So that's why this is legally protected from counting against them. Now the Able account comes into play, it gives a little bit more flexibility with that debit card, but it still has protections and it's legally recognized. We also have the option to issue a TrueLink card if you're familiar with that, kind of similar basis to Cal Able. It's a Visa debit card logo. It's prepaid. And we control all of the back end functions of it. So it's not a direct link to the trust in the sense of, you know, in this example, she's spending $1 million a year. She's not gonna have $1 million on the card. How that works is they would send us an email, text, call, however they want to communicate. Let's say, for example, today is Wednesday. Hey, Carol, I'm gonna go to the hairstylist on Friday. Can you put $200 on the card for me? Great. I will make that transfer. It's a bank transfer, so it'll be there the next business day. And it gets earmarked for a specific spending category. Now, if this person, for example, also has a substance abuse issue. They've just told me, I'm gonna go get a haircut, and I put funds on the card, and then it clicks at the liquor store or the weed store or the tobacco store. It's gonna get declined. So it's not even gonna go through. So it has all of these back end protections that again allow it to be legally protected from being seen as I just gave you $200 to do something. And so that's how that works. So that's our two main forms of distributions. It's the checks and the TrueLink card or helping to fund an Able account.
Thank you. Another question about Able Account and Special Needs Trust. Does it also assist with people with chronic illness and disability? And does the age of the beneficiary have a big role?
Uh, assist. I mean, I guess assist in what way? I mean, it assists by helping the person being able to access a separate source of funds while still keeping their benefit funds.
Thank you. I'll ask another question and maybe they can give a little more context in the chat. This question is, what is the difference between proxy parent versus a fiduciary administering the special needs trust?
Um, I mean, really, I would say the difference is it's similar functions. I mean, you could name a fiduciary as the trustee of your standalone trust. I would say that the main difference lies in the sense of organization versus individual, but also our niche. Our niche is that we were founded by families who had children with severe mental illness. And so that's the our lane that we've worked in. So we're well versed in working with clients with a variety of mental health issues, a variety of now that we're open to all disability types, physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, medical disabilities. Whereas a fiduciary might not have that niche expertise. Um, and if the client has intensive needs or boundary issues, even, and the same goes for a family member managing a special needs trust. I know I've gotten calls of, oh, my brother is on my lawn at 3 a.m. screaming, give me my money, give me my money. and I don't know what to do. Or if a fiduciary, if they're showing up at the fiduciary's office every day demanding money, or they're in a mental health crisis, is that fiduciary, do they know what to do to get that person support? But in terms of executive functioning of managing the funds, I would say it's pretty similar roles. It's just the way that our expertise and then the way we go about it.
Thank you. Well, we have about 12 minutes left. These are all really great questions and really great and detailed answers from you both. We'll welcome any other questions before we close out. And like I mentioned before, I'll include some contact information for you both if people have additional questions once our time is up, as well as posting the PowerPoint and the recording of this meeting so we can all review the plethora of information that was shared this evening. Okay, we do have another question. What will be the cost to administer a special needs trust worth $4 million?
So that goes back to the three fees that I mentioned earlier. So with this trust size, it's going to be the 1.25 tr annual trust maintenance fee, the 1% investment management fee, and the flat $285 tax preparation fee. Those will be the three costs, and that's not um, taking into account if this specific person wanted personal support services, but those are the three base fees. And the rate sheet will be included in the paperwork sent out.
Right. And there'll be a rate sheet for a first party trust and a third party trust because they're different.
There was
Any
one question I saw. It said, "What's an ABLE account?"
Oh,
Um, I can't, don't fault me if my explanation is not that technical. I don't work for CalAble, but my understanding is that it's kind of like a protected savings account in a way. So for both the individual and a family member or whomever to be able to contribute funds into this account for the beneficiary to use, which is also protected from being counted against them for public benefits eligibility. I would say really the big difference is the funding amount. So CalAble does have that yearly contribution limit. So sometimes if someone calls me, they're coming into a settlement and it's below the CalAble threshold, we'll happily refer them out to CalAble because their fees are a lot lower. I want to say it's $35 a year for the account. Which is incredible, right? So that's where it's like, oh, if you're getting 10K, 15K of a settlement money, if you can get a Cal label, please do so. But if you have a larger lump sum, then you wouldn't be able to deposit it all into Cal label, and that's where the special needs trust comes in.
And both are legislation. ABLE is nationwide as well. So is a special needs trust. It's a federal mandate, federal legislation. So there's, Connecticut ABLE. Every state has an ABLE. Texas ABLE. So, but it's
Mhm.
just, yeah. And it has some different caveats, but for the most part, it's the same legislation for that.
thank you.
If I wanted to get in touch with one of you, how do I do that? Do I call you or?
I will share the email for Proxy Parent Foundation I'll send out an email to anyone who's registered for this event that'll have all of that contact information and anything else we discussed.
Right.
Thank you
And we'll
very
give you
much.
Carol's, she has both of us do, but Carol has a scheduling link. So if you click on that, you can pick a day and time to meet so she can be available at that time and spend that time with you. So, we'll make sure you have that too, Sophia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, that's gonna be the fastest way to get on. We're go like Carmen said, we are going through a period of growth, so we calls are inundated. So if you have the ability to book just directly on my calendar, please do so.
That
and
sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. And just so you know, with us, if you get on Carol's calendar and so forth, then we can search. She can answer all your questions. If you're dealing with a fiduciary company or a lawyer, they have billable hours, and we don't. We will answer your question. You can call us back the next day. Oh, I forgot to ask you this. We get that all the time. So we want to make sure we're clear on that because that is a big difference. And a lot of people that have questions are older. They want someone to take the time, and they don't want to be rushed by a dollar amount. So I just wanted to make it clear that we don't do that. We will make sure we answer your questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
I'm seeing one last question about if parents who are divorced can each have a special needs trust and their child can get funds from both of those.
Yes, so there's not like any sort of legal limitation on the amount of special needs trusts that a person can have. You can have one, 10, 20, I would imagine. I would say that the administration probably gets difficult, especially if eh, roles aren't delineated or, who's paying for what is Trust A doing, what is Trust B doing. So if, relationships are amicable enough, I think it probably is better to create one trust and basically have both parties just feed into that one trust. But legally speaking, if mom wants her own trust, special needs trust, dad wants their own special needs trust, that's possible.
Yeah.
I would just hope that they can come together and at least delineate a little bit more so that everyone is clear on what roles they're playing. So 'cause we have just for example, we have a client that has two special needs trusts. One is held by some private institution and then the other one is held by us. But the parents were very clear in, okay, Trust A will only pay for, let's say, for example, housing, clothing, and car expenses, and then the proxy trust is handling, food and anything else, right? So if the client comes to me and says, "Oh, I need to pay for housing," we're like, "Great, let's get you connected to the other trust because they're the ones that are handling that," as opposed to if he made the same disbursement request to both trusts, right? So I think it's about the clarity of the roles that we're playing in the person's life more so than any sort of legal limitation on the amount of trust that you can
Right.
have.
And don't forget, so you said if it was two different, divorced parents, you can have more than one trust for even with proxy parent. So if mom wants to open up one and dad wants to open up one, as long as it goes to that person, we'll do it. But like Carol says, we need to figure out, well, what do you want paid out of this one and what do you want paid out of that one? How do you want it? How do you want it administered? Sometimes that's the best way to do it, especially if they can't communicate well, the parents, then dad can set his up and then mom can set hers up and they within their own trust said, when I pass this goes to Junior's trust and this is how much and this is how I want it done. And this father can do the same.
Yes, exactly. And with a third party trust, anybody can contribute to it except the beneficiary. So if I set up a trust for my son, um, I can give out the bridging language instructions to everyone in my family. And if they wanted to leave a gift for him for his trust when they pass on, then they can do that because anybody except the beneficiary can contribute to it. And then on the flip side of that, if the beneficiary themselves sets up their own first party trust where they're supplying the assets, only they can contribute to that account. No one else can contribute to that account. So that's also something to keep in mind that some families do. They'll set up the trust and then they'll pass along the information to any interested family for any potential future gifts as well.
I think we have time for one last question if anyone has one. Otherwise, I thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Carol and Carmen, for sharing all of this incredible information about the resource that you provide. And thank you all for being here and asking your thoughtful questions. When we leave the meeting, a survey will pop up, and I would really appreciate 4 questions. If you could fill it out, you'll be able to let us know if this meeting was helpful for you. You can suggest topics for future speaker meetings. So please take just a minute or two to fill that out. And in these last 2 minutes, we'll see if anyone has any lingering questions. Otherwise, have a great evening and thank you for joining.